even further shorthanded. They were without Jackson Robinson, their backup point guard, who was really their third-string point guard before Kirk Creason went out for the season. And then they lose Lamont Butler in the second half, re-aggravating his shoulder injury. So they really don't have a point guard per se. But, to me, to gut out this win when it looked like they were in trouble down the stretch, right? I mean, it really did. It looked like, hey, they'd given up the lead. Tennessee hasn't played great, but they got the lead. They got the momentum. They quieted the crowd for a little bit. And then Kobe Bryant, right? I mean, he made a couple big plays, a couple big-time shots, and then a lob to Owe that was kind of the difference.
Yeah, Randolph, you were a big shot maker in your day. The two step backs that Kobe Bryant hit, one, how difficult were those shots over the defenders that he hit them over? And two, how you can't coach that, right? That's one of those things where if you're Mark Pope, you kind of just say, Kobe, good. Thank you for making that. Thank you for making me look smart.
Rob, and at that point in the game with the injuries that they've had, you've got to roll with Kobe Bryant now. And if they had lost this game, the future going forward, you have serious concerns and doubts going forward. So the ability to make those shots, man, were clutch. He stepped up as a closer, man. But, the freshman, I thought Perry and Trevor Noah was great. I think they gave great minutes. And they're going to have to step up. Trent Noah is going to have to step up and give good minutes for him going forward. But listen, Bryant, just shot-making ability and play-making ability. I thought the lob was even a more impressive play because we know he's a great shooter. But the no-look lob showing that he could step up in moments when he needed him to close was big.
Yeah, and it's so impressive, Randolph, and we'll get to you in a second, Jeff, but it's so impressive that you could cycle through this many different point guards, this many different ways to run offense. Like Lamont Butler went down, re-aggravated the shoulder injury late in the second half. Kirk Creason isn't there. Jackson Robinson wasn't available. Trent Perry was getting ball hawked. They got to the point where it's Amari Williams running the point for him again, and it doesn't slow this offense down. Why?
Well, they're predicated on shooting and ball movement, so they don't have to play with a traditional point guard and dominate the ball. I think the problem that they're going to have going forward is going to be guarding the ball. They already struggle defensively. Guarding the ball, good guards off the dribble is going to be a problem going forward because they're just running out of bodies and guys that can do it. But their offense is predicated on body movement and ball movement, so having a dominant primary ball handler won't affect them offensively. They still can shoot the lights out.
Speaking of shooting the lights out, Trent Noah. They call him the Mountain Mamba here. They call him the Mountain Mamba, Randolph.
Yeah, I mean, the freshman from the mountains, from about 2 hours away in, I believe, eastern Kentucky, was unconscious in that first half. He hit those 3 threes, and, man, I haven't heard Rupp explode like that in a long time. No, it was crazy. I mean, again, you're talking about a local kid that really hadn't played a whole lot, a freshman. There was a 3-star recruit that Calipari didn't want, didn't think was good enough, was set to go to South Carolina, and then Mark Pope gets a job and says, you know what, we'll take a shot with this kid. And he's only forced to play because, frankly, they've got these other injuries. Then he comes in and he bangs 3 threes, and then the second half, he makes a huge play. Could have been an M1, maybe should have been an M1. But he gets in line and hits those 2 free throws in clutch situation.
Yeah, and I was talking with a couple of the Kentucky guys here, Randolph, and they were a little bit worried about having those guys deeper in the bench playing earlier on the season. But I think you're seeing the benefit of that. Trent Perry gave him some really good minutes. Travis Perry gave him some really good minutes tonight as well. Trent Noah gave him really good minutes off the bench. And I think you're seeing the value of blooding those guys early on to allow them to get the experience and the minutes so that in a situation like this, you got guys that are deep in that bench that can contribute.
Well, you got to play, and you got to play early. The concerning part or the most impressive part about it was you're going against the SEC Defensive Player of the Year.
Yes.
And that was the concern that I had. I'm like, all right, Zakai Ziegler is going to take over this game, not just offensively. I'm thinking defensively. But, man, credit to those guys. They stepped up and made plays. I thought Williams' ability to control the paint sometimes, his threat to block shots when he wasn't blocking shots was big. He can help initiate offense as well, the way he handles the ball in the middle of the paint. His DHOs and his backdoor passing helps them out a lot. So I think they'll be fine. They just got to continue to defend and knock down shots. They'll be fine. That's what their offense is predicated on. But at some point, they got to remain healthy. If not, then they're looking to be upset early.
So they'll be fine. But defensively, if you don't have Lamont Butler, you're going to revert back to what you were against Arkansas and Ole Miss. That's the biggest issue, right? Like, yes, they can score. Maybe not quite as efficiently. They can score. But defensively, they're going to be a mess again without Lamont Butler.
Yeah, and that's the single biggest thing with this team, right? Like we can go over this over and over and over and over and over again, but every time we talk about Kentucky, Randolph, it always comes back basically to the same comment. If this team is going to guard at the level they did in the first half tonight, at the level they did at South Carolina, then they have a chance to make some real noise because they are so dangerous shooting the ball. But if you get something like at Ole Miss, it's not going to be pretty because they can get lit up.
If Lamont Butler isn't playing, listen, I want to be optimistic, but it's easy to play with this level of passion and energy when you're home and that crowd and that place was buzzing like it is. When they go on the road and when they start playing outside of Rupp Arena, are they going to defend at the intensity level that they defended tonight? So he just plays with a level of toughness and it's different without them. I like we said, offensively they're going to be fine, but can they get enough stops? And when they're not making threes, that's when you need a guy like him out there. He makes a difference, and they're just running out of bodies. And you got to get Jackson Robinson back. Just as another secondary ball handling shot maker as well.
Yeah. The good news for Kentucky, if you have a couple guys banged up and you're trying to kind of figure through the injuries, you're at Texas on Saturday, then you get Vanderbilt at home in this building on February 19th before you go to Alabama on the 22nd.
Lamont Butler down for the next two games?
I think you have to. I don't think you have a choice.
I mean, they tried it for 3 games just now, and he came back and got hurt. So I don't know what you do. You try to manage it. You try to figure it out. They were trying to, maybe have him play through it and then get it stronger in between the games. But again, I mean, this was a tough one, and without him, I think you win a game in the tournament. You just can't. You can't sustain this. What they did tonight at the end of the game against one of the best defensive teams in the country without a point guard is not sustainable.
But I agree, but I will say this. I think we have seen Kentucky win a lot of these games that you say are not sustainable, right? Like, Randolph, if you remember the game at Gonzaga, they were down by 16 points at halftime. If you remember the game against Duke, it was they left a lot of open shots and forced a couple turnovers late, but that was one of those ones where like, well, you know what? Like, I feel like Kentucky might have stolen one here. We said that at the Champions Classic. The same thing at Tennessee when they beat Tennessee earlier on this season in SEC play. So at some point, it's just kind of like, you know what? This team might be stealing games, but maybe they just know how to win. Like, maybe that's their skill. Maybe they don't have to be great defensively. They just know how to win those close games. The only problem is when they get their ass kicked.
Rob, I'm going to side with Jeff on that in the sense of we're reverting back to when they were whole, when they were 100%. Mm-hmm. And then we can say, hey, we can appreciate them getting better on the defensive end of the floor. Right now, they're dinged up. Kirk Caruso ain't coming back. Jackson Robinson's out. And if Butler has a torn labrum, I don't know if he'll be – that's going to affect him. Let's be clear. He will not be 100%. From someone who's had 3 shoulder surgeries, he's probably going under the knife after the season to fix that. So how effective that is for a defensive guy trying to run through screens and just to play with the level of physicality and intensity he has to play with, Rob, that's it, for him to come back and then get re-injured when he gets back in this game is just stating you. He's trying to gut it out, man. But at some point, I don't know.
Well,
what is
Randolph,
enough, right?
Randolph, let me ask you this, because Jeff and I were talking about this earlier. If you're Lamont Butler, what is the point where you kind of say, I need to start looking out for myself? Because I think if you're worried about his shoulder, someone's going to have to save him from himself if that's something that can injure it long term.
He's a tough kid.
Because I don't think he's the kind. Yeah, right. He's not the kind of dude that's going to say, I'm going to sit this one out. He's going to say, I can lift my arm up, I can breathe, I have a pulse. Okay, suit up. I'm ready to go. Let's go play.
And listen, Rob, I think he should play, but he's not going to be as effective because getting through screens and playing the game, that's all I'm saying. I mean, I don't think he should just, if he can, it'll subside. It'll take him a couple of days. Every couple of days, he'll need 2 or 3 days. It'll calm down, and then he'll start back up again. The problem is as soon as he get back out there in an uncontrolled environment, it's going to pop out or it's going to slip or whatever it is. It's just inevitably going to happen until he gets this corrected on the surgery.